Well, good afternoon, everyone, or perhaps even good morning or good evening, depending on your time zone right now. Thank you very much for joining us for the webinar this afternoon. The topic today is Introduction to Meraki MV Security Cameras. So before I get into anything else, firstly, just a quick introduction to myself. My name is Imran Idris. I'm Marketing Manager here at Meraki. And firstly, I just wanted to share the agenda with you guys so you know what's coming up. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Meraki to begin with, particularly for those of you online who are less familiar with how we fit into the wider Cisco organization. I'll then move on to talking about the MV product philosophy and the architecture that we've developed here. And for most of today's session, actually, we'll spend time in a live demonstration of the product itself. So I'll actually flip over to my web browser and we can take a look at a live demonstration of the Meraki security camera in action. What I'll use as an example cameras today for demonstration purposes are real-life live cameras that we have deployed at our offices in San Francisco, and we'll take a look at some of the real-life things we can do with them. We'll come back to the presentation at that point when we'll talk about the licensing, about the cameras, the other portfolios that we have in the Meraki lineup, and finally we'll finish up by talking about some next steps you can take with the Meraki MV, as well as leaving time for a Q&A session. Please don't feel like you have to hold your questions until the end. However, you can ask a question at any time, including right now, using the Q&A functionality on WebEx, and I'd actually encourage you to ask questions as and when you think of them, rather than wait until the end, by which time you may have forgotten your original question. So I'm also very pleased to announce that as a part of attending today's session, all IT professionals are eligible for a free Cisco Meraki H211AC access point with a 3-year cloud management license. There are a few eligibility criteria, such as regions that are eligible for this promotion. If you wouldn't mind just quickly checking out those to make sure you're eligible at meraki.cisco.com/free-AP. And if you wouldn't mind giving us a quick call after the webinar, just to confirm a couple of bits of information. First, if you wouldn't mind confirming your shipping information so we can make sure that that access point gets to the correct person at the correct location. And secondly, if you wouldn't mind confirming your organization's VAT number, we just need that for legal purposes. So you can find our contact information to confirm this in the reminder email you'd received as a part of the webinar registration today, or you can find the telephone number to call at meraki.cisco.com/contact. Meraki then, well, for those of you who do like to keep yourselves up to date with the latest technology news, we'll all know that Cisco Meraki was actually born out of an acquisition that Cisco made at the end of 2012, whereby they acquired a company called Meraki. So even before Meraki was acquired, it was a leader in cloud networking with over 20,000 customer networks deployed at that point in time. So you can see from the number on the screen there, that's gone up pretty significantly. So we've seen some very significant growth under the Cisco umbrella since we got acquired. So we have now over 180,000 unique customers worldwide in over 100 countries. And actually, we passed a great milestone a few weeks ago where we now have over 1 million active networks live, Meraki networks live in the world today. So it took us a little over a decade to do that, but we have over 1 million networks actively being used today. And that actually constitutes and is made up of over 2.6 million Meraki network devices. So needless to say, we are one of Cisco's fastest growing portfolios. And what is the portfolio then? Well, back in 2006, when we first started as an organization, we were really looking to simplify wireless access points. So we really honed the the dashboard to the needs of managing wireless access points. We soon realized we could exploit this technology out to the rest of the networking stack. So we soon launched switches, security appliances, mobile device management, or EMM, with Systems Manager to include the entire networking stack to be able to manage from the dashboard. So again, about 18 months, 2 years ago, we broadened the scope of the dashboard once again to start including general IT items such as the Meraki phone. And most recently, we launched towards the end of last year the Meraki security cameras, the newest addition to the portfolio, which we're going to talk about in more detail today. One thing, however, that has remained consistent throughout all of our launches is the Meraki dashboard, and that is one thing that is going to remain consistent as we look to the future and no doubt add more product lines to this platform. So really what we have, simply put, is integrated hardware, software, and cloud services, and they're really bundled together in one nice, neat, clean package. So let's talk more about the MV security cameras then. So first of all, I just wanted to share product philosophy that our engineering team have. And this isn't specific just to the security cameras across the entire portfolio. But really, when we're looking to launch new devices, we operate or we are producing products based on a concept that we refer to as minimum viable product. So having the minimum features to be able to take to market, and then being able to take feedback that we have as a result of the early customers. And because the model we have been cloud-based, we can react and add very thoughtful and useful features that are going to make our customers' lives a lot easier through our firmware updates. So really the goal behind the MV for the engineering team was to apply Meraki's really very rich expertise in cloud. We've been in the cloud since 2006, before it became the most overused buzzword in the industry that it is today. Our distributed computational systems and UX design to video surveillance. So really what we're talking about essentially is solving problems rather than just building features for the sake of features. So what we've actually launched then, the newest Meraki product family, the MV, is the MV21, which is our indoor version, and the MV71, which is an outdoor version. So it's the only security camera, and it's from the leading cloud vendor, Meraki. It's managed through the same dashboard as, if you're familiar with the other Meraki product ranges, it's managed from that exact same dashboard. So if you have existing Meraki products today, wireless, switch, security appliances, etc., this will appear if you go ahead and deploy as another item on the left-hand navigation menu. And we'll take a look at this in the demonstration. Each of the Meraki security cameras has 128 gigabytes of solid-state storage built into each and every camera. And we have things like motion and schedule-based retention. I'll talk about this a little bit more later on. So I just wanted to spend some time talking about current video surveillance solutions and how Meraki differs. And actually, one of the things that really came to mind when we first launched this is what we did with wireless back in the day, back in 2006, when we got rid of the requirement for any additional hardware to be able to manage wireless access points, namely the on-site Wi-Fi controller. So we made the wireless access points independent, securely connecting back to the cloud, really bypassing the need for an on-site Wi-Fi controller. And it's really a similar concept to what we've done with security cameras. So typical video surveillance solutions today will require things like on-premise hardware to export video, network video recorder, or NVRs as they're referred to, standalone software packages, drivers, plugins, IP configuration, or there are actually customers and organizations out there that are offloading the data being collected by video cameras or surveillance cameras onto DVDs, thumb drives, VHS we've even come across during our research, and other outdated sharing options. So with MV, we're very gladly able to say goodbye to all these very complex and outdated storage systems. So what we have then is, again, it's an architecture very similar to the wireless access points and the rest of the portfolio. The Meraki security cameras each independently securely connect back to the cloud, and then you can access their video footage from wherever in the world you are that you have access to a web browser, essentially. You can also access local If you are connected to LAN while the same LAN as the video cameras, you can gain local access to the videos. But the major thing here is that everything is out of the box. The camera has one simple PoE Ethernet port on the back of the device that needs to be plugged in, and that's it. Everything else will automatically configure itself. It'll register to the dashboard. You'll be able to access its footage wherever you are in the world. There's no need for any integration with other hardware to be able to export the video. There's storage on the device itself. So there's no need for also, and we'll take a look at this when we go to demonstrations, no need for downloading or installing any plugins to be able to play back the video. It's all intuitive to web browser. So in terms of actual bandwidth being used upstream for the camera, it's very minimal. It's around 50 kilobits per second upstream bandwidth being used per camera. So just as a clarification, I saw a question pop up. There is no video surveillance being stored in the cloud whatsoever. It's all being stored on the camera itself, and actually when you want to access that, if you're remote, i.e. not on the LAN for that particular network, you would just access it using the dashboard, or if you're on the LAN, it'll talk straight back to those cameras. So we've also introduced technology for hybrid video processing that actually allows the motion to be indexed in the cloud, and then you can actually very, very easily search for motion-based events, and we'll again show that in the demonstration as well. Encryption is by default. We've been doing this for a very long time, but when applied to these video cameras, we've got encryption on the video at rest, during transport, and of the management data. So in terms of security, it's very, very, very locked down. So let me actually flip over to my web browser now and take a look at the interesting stuff. So as I mentioned earlier on, what I'll use as an example network or setup today is our very own Meraki HQ location, San Francisco. So today I'm at our offices in London, so it's a great opportunity for me to be able to demonstrate how we can actually use all of this remotely, thousands of miles away from where the devices may be deployed themselves. So if any of you are familiar with Meraki, you'll be quite familiar with the starting screen here. So I've just logged into our Meraki corporate dashboard. I can see on this Google Maps here where we have Meraki devices deployed globally, and the color of each of those locations are showing me the health of the devices at that particular location. So let me dive into our network in San Francisco. It's called Meraki San Francisco on the right-hand side here. I can just click into that and it will take me off to show me more information about what's happening with our network over there. So the page I'm on right now is showing me a list of all the clients that have been accessing our network in San Francisco over the last day. Now, all this information, network-wide information, isn't all that relevant for the cameras, so I'm going to very briefly just talk about it and then move on to the cameras. But just wanted to, first of all, take a small step back and talk about the UI that we're looking at. So if you are fairly new to Meraki, what we're looking at here from this one view now is a view that is showing us all of the monitoring and configuration capabilities of all of the various Meraki device types that we have deployed at our location in San Francisco. So on the left-hand menu, you can see there's a line item for switch, wireless, systems manager, phones, cameras, etc. That's because we have as you might imagine, the entire suite of Meraki devices deployed at our offices in San Francisco. So you can see on the left-hand menu, if I hover above switch, for example, I'm showing all the monitoring and configuration capabilities for the switches. Same thing for our wireless access points, for systems manager, for the phones, and the camera. So if you do have more than one Meraki device type deployed, you can achieve a view such as this one where you have all of your switching, wireless, security, phones and cameras, everything is in one place. And many of you on the line may be familiar with this already with other product portfolios that you may have deployed. So let's get into the cameras. Let's hover above cameras and let's take a look at the cameras we have deployed. So this table is showing me a list of all the cameras that we have deployed at our office in San Francisco, and we have 33 of them. I can see the status of the cameras, name of the cameras that we've given them, MAC addresses, model number, connectivity over the past 24 hours, whether they are on a schedule. And if I hit this little spanner bar here, I can add and remove columns to really customize this view to suit our own specific needs. I can also download all of the data in the table as a CSV or XML file. So I can actually search this table very easily if I wanted to find all the cameras that have been named anything to do with bike. So as you might imagine, these cameras are located in our bike room. So if I, for example, dive into the bike room outdoor camera here. So what this is now doing is actually establishing a connection with our camera, real-time information, real-time live stream to the outdoor bike room camera. And hopefully you can see that there now. So it's fairly early in the morning in San Francisco. So I think around sunrise, so we can see it is daytime now, and there's not much movement outside there. That's all great and well, but how does this help us? I mean, so far in terms of compared to traditional surveillance technology, to get to this point already, it's a lot more straightforward with Meraki. In terms of a deployment process, let's say, for example, you were deploying 100 cameras across 10 different locations, and let's say that each location, for simplicity's sake, had 10 cameras to deploy. So with Meraki, you can do this in very short order, place an order for 100 Meraki security cameras, 100 software licenses, and what you'll be given in return is an order number that relates to your order. Now you can take that order number, copy and paste it across into the Meraki dashboard, and inventory will populate there. You can then go ahead and literally plug those cameras in at the location that are required. They will tunnel secure connection back to the cloud, download any configuration settings you applied from your web browser, and that's it. They're online, talking back to this particular dashboard. You can then organize, call these cameras whatever you like, and really that's it. Whereas with more traditional technologies, you may really have to spend weeks, maybe even months, to integrate with on-site hardware to export the video, as well as plugins. You can see here I've just logged in to a web browser, didn't have to install any plugins, and I can see a live stream of cameras. We can see some early risers getting into the office. So one of the other things that this really simplifies is being able to search for motion and security events. So let's say, for example, and again, I'm going to refer back to and compare to traditional technologies just because it's probably what a lot of people are going to be familiar with. So let's say, for example, there's been some kind of security event at some point in time over the last 24 hours or 48-hour period. So in a more traditional architecture and approach, what you'd have to do is, once you have got an idea of what sort of time period this happened in, 48-hour period, you have to export all that footage, typically, either onto DVD or onto a flash drive, and then have some poor chap or person sitting through the 48 hours worth of footage to spot when there was movement. Well, we're indexing all of that movement in the cloud as metadata, so we're then able to perform a motion-based search right here from dashboard. So if I click into motion search here, and I can even select the region that I'm interested in of motion. So let's say, for example, this particular region here. I'm interested in all the motion that happened in that particular region. So you can see down here, I'm given automatically a list of all of the motion-based events that happen in that particular box that I selected. I could zoom out so that I've shown more events, zoom out further, and so you saw that I had to zoom out just a little bit more because obviously we had the weekend and there was very little movement. So information that I have about the motion-based events that happened, the duration of those events, percentage of the frame that moved, and the percentage that was in the region of interest. If I sort by region of interest, and here we have high regions of interest, let me find a fairly short duration so we can see some movement. So let me select this particular event that happened here, these 14 seconds. And if I come back up here into the video, you can see all those blue areas where we had movement. So you can see someone's leaving, a couple of people leaving the office. And it really is that simple and straightforward. So if we imagine this was some kind of security event, it was a burglar or some kind of robbery happened, we're able to gain access to this footage. We can actually export this and create a standalone link, such as a YouTube-esque link. It's not on YouTube, of course, so that we can share that link with law enforcement, and they can access that directly without needing to actually log into the dashboard. So really, this is the stage we were at when we launched. We're able to already simplify motion-based search in a massive, massive way and reduce the amount of time it took to isolate security events or motion-based events. Since launch, with the model we have being cloud-based, we were able to add all these tabs that you see at the top. Analytics. So we don't have enough motion in the last 1 hour, but if I go to the last 1 day, we have motion heat maps. So you can see that's a walkway, so it's obviously getting a lot of motion. On the 11th of July, Wednesday, it's got a lot of motion. And you can see Saturday and Sunday being weekend days, obviously you don't get a lot of motion. So automatically you can probably start to think of applications where this could be particularly useful if you do have perhaps a camera set up outside for traffic. You can see when there are high and low levels of traffic, not just car traffic, but of course this is going to lend itself very nicely to retail applications where merchandisers are definitely going to be interested in which regions of the store have got high traffic and at what times of the day. Similar to, again, if you're familiar with Meraki, we have a similar technology called location analytics and location heat maps that we use on the wireless, where we're able to, on a floor plan or on Google Maps, in fact, give you an idea based on mobile devices on people and the pings they send out to connect to wireless networks. Regardless of whether they connect or not, we're able to gain a similar picture. We have network information about this particular security camera, so we can see its LAN IP, public IP, gateway, DNS, Ethernet. We can see the switch and port it's plugged into, and again, because it's a Meraki switch and port, it's showing up as a hyperlink. So if I click into any one of these, it'll take me off to the port or switch that it belongs to. Again, if you imagine it wasn't plugged into a Meraki switch, you wouldn't be able to as easily go into more information about the switch and port. So it's another great example of really having more than one Meraki portfolio line deployed and the benefits that offers you. Firmware, we can see there is an update available here, so we could go ahead and update that. Configuration, it says up to date. Model, MAC address, serial number, any tags we've given it helps us search for it. Connectivity over the past 24 hours, and we have a few tools here. I can blink the LEDs of the camera or perform a trace route. Take a look at location. It's on the heat map, so you can see zoomed out, but in San Francisco, at our offices, I can take a look at the event log, what's been going on there, and finally settings. So I can edit zoom and focus. So this doesn't have these particular models, the first ones to be launched, don't have motorized lens in there, so we don't have the ability to remotely change where the camera is looking at. So you can change that, however, if you are on site when you're setting this up, you can unscrew the cover, manually move the lens and position it. You do have some then optical zoom and focus that you can perform. Optical zoom from 82 degrees to 28. Focus, we've actually enabled autofocus. You can also focus on a specific area as well as change the aperture and rotation. Quality and retention. Actually, before I come on to quality and retention, let me go to night mode. So we can set up night mode so it's automatic, or you can manually do this if you like. Infrared illuminators and transition thresholds of lux from night to day. Quality and retention. So this is something that, again, we introduced through our firmware updates. So for customers who purchased Meraki security cameras on the day they were launched, they wouldn't have seen at the top analytics or this quality and retention tab. However, because we have a cloud-based model, and without incurring any additional cost or any complexity, existing customers were able to access these features as soon as they became available by performing a firmware upgrade. And that's at zero cost included in the license fee. So the exact same model that other Meraki device types have. So quality and retention. So these are really a bunch of features that were introduced to increase the retention capability of Meraki cameras. So with the 128 gigabytes of storage the Meraki cameras have, we have up to 20 continuous days worth of recording. We received feedback from some customers that this wasn't sufficient. In some cases, they did need a little bit more than that. So our engineers diligently worked away and introduced this to increase that capacity. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. So the first way is by having the cameras record on a schedule. So when should the cameras record? Always, or schedules. You can click scheduled and change the schedule. And here's some of the ones we have built in, but if I go to new schedule, you can just create your own, drag and drop these, really very, very simple and straightforward. And you can actually have multiple schedules per day on and off. So you could have between 9 and 11:30 on Monday, and then an hour between 4 and 5, and then in the evening. So you can create these whatever you like, and when they're applied, obviously you don't have to worry about manually turning cameras on and off. They'll automatically start recording and stop recording. That's going to increase retention, but one of the other things, which is probably more dynamic and easier to configure and less to think about and less probability of missing a security event, which is motion-based retention. So motion-based retention is slightly different to what you may be familiar with, and not to be confused with motion-based recording. So motion-based retention basically affords you 3 full days worth of storage at any given point in time, even when it is enabled. Beyond those 3 days, we have a proprietary algorithm that uses information that it's learnt about when the camera's been being used to start then splicing out information or data that it believes didn't have any movement. So if you want to enable that, we can go ahead and say yes. And when should the camera delete footage? When it runs out, or when footage is older than 7 days. You can decide yourself, but when it runs out, we also then have video quality that you can choose. Standard, which is at 530 kilobits per second at 8 frames per second, or enhanced, which is 15 frames per second. But either way, once you've gone ahead and selected all of that, you have an estimate of the storage this camera is capable of, and actually uses historical information about what the camera has learnt about where it's deployed to give you that estimate. And that estimate's, again, If it's on a busy high street when there's likely to be movement continuously, that's probably going to be much lower, but with what it's learned about that particular street where that bike room store weekends doesn't really get much movement, it's using all that information to estimate that that particular camera is going to be able to yield 46 days worth of retention. I can dive into more detail about this if I go into more information. So maybe you have a target of what you want to achieve in terms of retention. Maybe it's 30 days, 6 days, 90 days, and it will actually show you what percentage of the cameras that you have are going to be able to store at least 60 days worth of video, standard video quality, with motion-based retention enabled. And again, it's using data of all those cameras that you have deployed and how much movement they see over a given or over an average week to be able to give you that estimate. Finally, before we go back to the presentation, just wanted to highlight Video Wall. Video Wall, if I go into that, you can create exactly what it sounds like, Video Wall, so multiple streams into one place. So we have a few different video walls created. If we keep with the topic of the bikeway entry, if I go into the top tab here, again, each one of these is now establishing connection with those cameras to provide a live stream. So it's going to be providing 4 live stream. The outdoor one we were looking at earlier on, we'll have an indoor view of that, and that's actually a zoom view on the door. We'll have a view of the bike room rack and the internal entrance that's zoomed. And again, all the search capability you can see is the same as what we had before. I can then perform a motion-based search. I can choose a region, so let's say it's that door that I'm interested in, and zoom out a little bit. Just give that a few minutes, and let me just try refreshing that. I think always doing a live demo. Here we go. So we can see a live stream of all those 4 cameras now. So if I choose motion search, and the reason I want to actually persist on this is because it's quite cool what it's going to give back. So if I want to perform a motion search on this particular door here, I can do that, which is great. And I can zoom out on all those events, zoom out a little bit more. There we go. So region of interest, let's take a look at a high region of interest, and let's choose this 12-second period that we had there. So if I choose that, you can see the blue portion of the frame is where we saw movement. It's going to start playing back that particular event that happened on the 12th. There we go. So you can see here on the bottom right, you can see the bike room entrance, that person, and these are all synced together. That person's leaving, and now on the left-hand side, we can see that person exiting, and there's someone following them as well, and the person in blue t-shirt's also exiting. So that's the reason I wanted to actually show you this, because if we have more than one camera pointed at essentially one scene from various different angles, you can perform a motion-based search on a wall and actually have all the angles covered and be played simultaneously. So let me flip back to the presentation at this point. So I just want to just really recap on some of the features that we talked about in demonstration, the powerful intuitive features that we have built in. So the motion search that we just talked about, you can really automatically isolate key motion events and find out who stole that laptop, for example. It's very simple and straightforward to export the video. You can create a YouTube-esque link so someone can directly access that clip. We have built-in analytics, again, that we pushed out through those firmware updates, the motion heat maps. Cameras can be used as sensors to make smarter business decisions, so immediately retail comes to mind. But we actually have a couple of case studies now in manufacturing where the cameras are being used to better understand manufacturing processes and improve those. You also have the granular access control, so you can choose who can view, export, and change the layout of your video. So typically with surveillance cameras, it's not going to be the IT manager or IT director that's there as a security guard watching multiple security footage in real time. So you can actually create a granular login for the dashboard that can be shared and a simplistic view seen by someone like a security guard. So we talked about this, the optimized video retention, so it's something that we pushed out as a firmware update back in May now, I think. So after launch, we had that feedback from customers. We were able to react to that very diligently and swiftly. So really we can increase retention to up to 90 days now using these methods of scheduling or motion-based retention. And of course, everything is on the dashboard. So all the things, if you are familiar with dashboard, are there: two-factor authentication for security. You have offline device alerting, local time zone, connectivity history, network insights, the automatic firmware updates. So the dashboard really is a way to very simply monitor your environment, monitor locations and multiple views, angles, as well as very easily get to the footage when you need to. So our development principles in terms of taking the technology forward is really in three buckets. We're looking to really simplify through cost reduction, or reduce costs through simplification, look at it either way, as well as automate with operational simplification, as well as offer business value with intelligence. So these are the three kind of guiding principles that our engineers are working on to be able to improve this product for the future. Finally, just wanted to talk about the licensing model with the MV. It's actually very, very similar to the rest of the Meraki hardware range. If you're familiar with that, it's a 1-to-1 ratio with hardware to licensing. So for example, if you wanted to purchase 10 Meraki security cameras, you would also purchase 10 software licenses, and the licenses come in a few different durations to suit everyone's needs. We have an annual license, a 3-year license, 5-year license, 7-year license, up to 10 years if you so wish. And licenses are all inclusive. They include things like 24/7 support. You're also not limited by the number of users you can have on a license. Everything is inclusive. We don't have any per feature licensing. So for as long as you have a valid license, you have the most up-to-date security camera, Meraki security camera at any given point in time. So you have access to all the new features that we are pushing out at least on a quarterly basis, so you don't have to spend an extra penny, cent, or dime, whichever currency you might use. And there's no complexity. So you can actually enable automatic firmware updates, which will check for a firmware update at your given chosen time. Normally, people allow this for early hours of the morning on a weekend when network usage is likely to be negligible, and it'll check if there is a firmware update available. If one is, it'll automatically update, or you can manually do this to keep an eye on when firmware updates become available and group it with some other infrastructure updates you're doing. And finally, we're really very proud in terms of the hardware that we've built here. And actually, a fun fact about the actual hard drive in the cameras, and this hard drive actually only became available about 6 months before the cameras actually went into production. So it really is very, very state-of-the-art, and we're actually very proud to be able to offer 3-year warranty on both models, the outdoor and indoor. Finally then, to finish up, of course the security camera isn't our only Meraki product line, it's actually just our newest one. We have a rich heritage, of course, and we're fast approaching becoming market leaders in the wireless access points. We also have MX security appliances in the portfolio. If you're not familiar by what we mean by security appliances, I actually myself more colloquially refer to them as the Swiss Army knife in our networking toolkit, just because they're able to do about 5 different boxes worth of jobs in one very unique device. Within there we have an NG application firewall, site-to-site VPN capability, client VPN. We have advanced malware protection with Cisco proprietary technology, AMP, malware protection, content filtering. All of that is going on this one extremely unique box. Actually, Gartner's term for describing this particular appliance, which you may be more familiar with, is a UTM device, a Unified Threat Management Solution. So not only is it a security appliance or UTM, it's also SD-WAN, or offers SD-WAN. So normally those two you might think are separate solutions, and you'd be quite right, they are quite separate, but the MX security appliance is able to offer both in one. If you're not familiar with SD-WAN, software-defined wide area networking, if you do have multiple sites as an organization and you're transferring corporate resources between them, or you're finding just general issues in bandwidth, I'd highly recommend attending one of our MX webinars and learning more about SD-WAN. It is a great technology that can actually save you a great deal in terms of your WAN spending. Also in the portfolio we have access and aggregation switching, systems manager or enterprise mobility management with systems manager. One of our other newer additions to the portfolio, MC Meraki Communications, the Meraki phone. So really what we have is a complete cloud managed IT portfolio, and the one thing that is consistent throughout the entire portfolio is the way they're managed, using a simple web browser, the Meraki dashboard. So then next steps then. We actually have, as a part of attending today's session, you will of course receive that free Meraki A11AC wireless access point. Of course it isn't a security camera, but hopefully it will give you a good understanding if you don't or haven't experienced cloud management with Meraki. Hopefully we'll give you that firsthand. But if you are interested in the security cameras specifically, we do have an excellent evaluation program here at Meraki. We can try any one of the devices in the portfolio absolutely free of charge, including of course the security cameras, such as security appliances, wireless access points. URL to register for free evaluation is meraki.cisco.com/eval, something I'd highly recommend. We do want you to be very confident in decisions you're making about your IT infrastructure. So we want to give you the full opportunity to try this equipment out on your own premises, at your own organizations. And actually it is risk and commitment free, so if you do find for whatever reason it's not for you, you can simply pop it back in the box. It actually comes with a prepaid shipping label. You can send it back to us, so we pay for shipping both ways. If you do need any help setting up the equipment, we do provide complimentary technical assistance should you need a hand setting any devices up. So the URL is there, meraki.cisco.com/eval. Maybe you want to learn a little bit more general information either about Meraki, some of the other products, or a bit more information about the security camera. You can learn more on our website and our blog. The website is meraki.cisco.com and the blog is /blog. Or perhaps you have a specific question or are interested in purchasing and getting a quote, in which case recommend getting in touch with your Meraki sales rep. Their specific direct dial will actually be in the reminder email for today's session, or you can actually visit meraki.cisco.com/contact and find telephone that's called in there.